hell. See that? The Stupendium drunk all that the last time they were here, so definitely didn't buy us a replacement. So thanks. Anyway, hello everyone, welcome. I am Stephanie Sterling, and you may be wondering why I've got the rum out, or at least what's left of the rum out. Well, it's not because we're talking about a pirate-themed game. Well, we're not talking about it, more around it, because Ubisoft is the subject. Hence the rum. Anyway, this. Sometimes I don't choose the subject chooses me. Or rather, the people who want to see me go off on a particular subject choose and then inundate me with links and messages asking if I've seen it, and that they can't wait for Monday. And that I'm possibly the most attractive and eligible video game critic and pro wrestler with mask and femme first names working in the Greater Yorkshire area, over 40. So that's not bad. So anyway, while I really want to complain about how fucking Helldivers 2 is a complete shit show at launch with terrible connectivity and it crashes all the time and I didn't even know they put microtransactions into it until it was too late, I'm instead going to talk about that thorough pudstick of an Ubisoft CEO and his ridiculous upjump claims that his abusive company's latest game, Skrull & Jones, deserves to charge the ridiculous upjumped price of $69.99 because it's a... Fuck, I can't believe we're actually doing this. Because it's a Quadruple-A game. More specifically, he's going around with the absolute cocksnotting temerity to claim Quadruple-A status for a live service, which... well, it should just be considered a fucking contradiction in terms. Most so-called fucking service games, as we've explored a dozen times by now, are half-finished shells with roadmaps, promising content later and only delivering if the unfinished repetitive shit they launched with engages enough players. Something, Anthem, etc. That is to say, it's rare to see a service game even deserve to call itself Triple-A, let alone dare to tack another A onto the end. Wait, I actually said rarely in the script. Sorry, that implies it sometimes happens. It doesn't. Obviously, because Ubisoft fostered and protected a culture of abuse and exploitation for which it's not truly accounted for, I will neither be playing nor directly promoting Skillet Bongs, so obviously I can't vouch for its quality directly, but that's fine. I've played at least one Ubisoft game before, so I think I can speak with 100% experience. I'm sure it's packed, full of content. For content's sake, copy-pasted object. You know what? I don't need to do this, especially because I could be wrong and it could turn out that Skulk and Boink is actually an immersive and feature-rich world with varied and unique side quests that have been well thought out and extensive. You know, Ubisoft could have just launched the next Baldur's Gate 3. At any rate, this is less about quality and more about arrogance, greed, and history repeating. Basically, it's just your typical story about the video game industry, innit? You will see that Shit and Piss is a full-fledged game, Yves Guillemot said, perhaps thinking we'll be ashamed of our words and deeds. It's a very big game, and we feel that people will really see how vast and complete that game is. So it's a really full Triple-A, Quadruple-A game that will deliver in the long run. Sorry, whose former executives got arrested? That's nothing to do with me, mate. I mean, it's never a good thing to claim that your game, which you're selling as a feature-complete package for the most premium retail price there is, will deliver in the long run. Especially when, as I literally explained a few moments ago, the rate at which these high-profile service games actually deliver is fucking dire. I mean, at least I can say that Ubisoft at this point has perfected the art of manufacturing large open worlds dotted with nebulous stuff that it's about the only AAA publisher I'd actually trust to hit a deadline, even if I wouldn't trust it not to cause emotional and physical distress to its employees. And yes, Ubisoft is a AAA publisher, not a Quadruple-A one. And even then, I still choke on the term. A couple of years ago, I foolishly tried to nip this shit in the bud despite knowing full well it was a wasted effort. When companies, specifically Microsoft, started bandying Quadruple-A around at the beginning of the PS5 and Xbox Series X's life cycle, I provided an extensive argument as to why that was such a pompous fucking claim. Essentially, it boils down to the fact that as someone who can rarely say AAA normally unless I add so called to the beginning of it, of course I wasn't going to accept that a classification of games that had been charging more and more for less and unfinished content had even lived up to its past benchmark of quality, let alone surpassed it. And that is what he's talking about. While AAA once was more about scale and budget, over time it took on this air of grandeur, and it was always arrogant to use AAA anyway. It's a term that started with an unwarranted allusion to pedigree, and it's become an equally unwarranted direct claim of pedigree. Ubisoft itself has been a huge proponent of the sludgification of video games. Aside from the fact so many of its games, geographically vast they may be, are lacking in compelling activities and are often buggy as fuck, the homogenization of games into sprawling spaces with bandit camps and radio towers tossed across them like jacks was very specifically planned by Ubisoft and crowed about by Yves Guillemot at least as far back as the mid-2010s, when he was farting farts out of his mouth to declare that all games should be the same fucking sandbox. And as I always need to point out, the short-sighted and ruinous gold rush toward live service games, the fucking bane of the medium, was kickstarted in no small part thanks to the publisher's magic money circle, a graphic that presents games as a rotation of the same product, endlessly generating infinite money as it does. It is a dickheaded graphic, followed by dickheads, which a lot of dickheads did, mostly to the point of failure. Ubisoft, of all companies, trying to posit an argument in favour of the industry's generational price hiking? Pfft, I don't have the words, but Galvatron does.
This is bad comedy.
Eve's argument is hilarious if you take it in faith as bad as the faith I'm planning to take it in. Look, the man thinks $69.99 is fair for Bulk and Skull because it's so high quality, so fully furnished, so Quadruple-A. If that's the case, if $70 is based on the game's high production values and a full delivery of promises, and doing so upgrades a game to the esteemed and prestigious Quadruple-A position, I have a few other games with the exact same MSRP that we simply have to consider as Quadruple-A too. Forspoken, $70. Quadruple-A. Dead Island 2, $70. Quadruple-A. The Callisto Protocol, $70. Quadruple-A. The mediocre wizard game that didn't even get a single Game of the Year nominee, $70. Quadruple-A. Fucking Call of Duty now, $70. Quadruple-A. Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights! $70! Quadruple-A! Gotham Knights! Those are the inhabitants of the $70 price bracket for which Yves Guillemot's qualifications are, and I quote, a full-fledged game, vast and complete, Quadruple-A. Gotham fucking Knights. You know another game that's Quadruple-A according to Evil Boy? Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. A game that requires a persistent online connection at launch, even in single player, and it did that shitty gimmick of unlocking a game several days early if you buy the ludicrously priced special edition. Except the fucking online connection didn't work then, so anybody who paid that exorbitant fee for a very time-limited bonus got to watch that bonus continually evaporate in front of their helpless faces. That's the level of vast, complete quality we're dealing with in the so goddamn cold Quadruple-A space. A company the size of Warner Brothers so immediately unable to keep a live service promise that it couldn't even deliver on what's fast becoming one of the flimsiest, scammiest, easiest upgrades in recent video game history. Beyond that, Eat the Just Juice League perfectly encapsulates the problem with mainstream games right now, the factory standard open world plug-in model that Ubisoft popularised through near 20 years of streamlining, strip mining, and incrementally charging more for less, in a way that vastly raised the price of a complete video game experience far in excess of $60 or $70, thanks to a carefully calculated process of content carving, paywalling, and aggressive predatory monetization. Plus half a dozen fucking editions of every fucking video game. It's another thing I've extensively covered in a prior video. To quote from my review of Suicide Squad on the Jimquisition.com, it's not a terrible game, it's just another one. There are so many of these bloody games on the market now, all vying for attention, all doing the same thing, and none of them doing enough of anything good. This is just one in a line of flimsy service games, light on original content, but plenty heavy on microtransactions. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has its moments of messy fun, but those moments are entrenched between gulfs of numbingly inane looter-shooter nonsense. I'm just over it. Homogenization in games is nothing new. It's thanks to video games I know what homogenization means. When I was a fledgling in this business, it was the so-called brown military shooter fad that everyone was glomming onto. Today, it's service games of various stripes. And in the mainstream space, that variety of stripes is being reduced further to essentially mean the exact same framework of open-world looter shooter. Suicide Squad really is just another one. A game bogged down with the usual slew of boring assault rifles presented as loot, daily login bonuses, loot box drops, microtransactions, and a persistent online connection that really doesn't fucking need to be there. And for those who bought the expensive one hoping to play it early, it fucking wasn't there. Also, you know what? Helldivers 2 is not $60 or $70. It's cheaper than that, but it's yet another game, one that actually does need an online connection in order to be fucking playable. And I was unable to play it this afternoon because it couldn't connect, and when it does connect, matchmaking is fucked and the game keeps crashing. And that's got the Sony seal of approval on it. You know Sony, the company that deserves a huge portion of blame for pushing the $70 price hike. Frankly, I'm actually surprised Ubisoft's even bothering to justify the price at this point in time. We've gotten through the awkward teething phase that happens every time the industry puts in a concerted effort to normalise something shitty. I thought we'd already entered the comfortably numb phase where people lose the energy to protest and just accept a new normal. The industry had already won and $70 has become the basic MSRP now. When Gotham Knights can get away with charging the best part of $100 buckos for its standard edition, you know it's all over. Hell, when Gotham Knights anything, it's all over. The Assault Company's CEO pulling an excuse out of his backdoor crinkle at this point is just rubbing the win in our faces. Then again, maybe what this actually is an industry confession on the part of Guillemot. Not a confession of what he knew about the abuse of the company his family's owned all his life, but a confession that actually mainstream video games are all fucking shit. Now bear with me because this once again involves a bad faith reading of his words that only really serve me and insult him, which is fine because he's a wealthy CEO and therefore not a real human being deserving of respect. You know, the way his executives look at women. But basically, what if what he means is that the term AAA is so tarnished by years of shitty, unpolished, overpriced and under-delivering video games that executives had to literally invent a higher tier of quality to escape it. I mean, just look at the incredibly low fucking bar Ubisoft's opening argument sets for itself. You'll see, Skunk and Bunk is a full-fledged game. That's his bar. That's the fucking bar the actual game industry has legitimately set itself now, through years of active quality reduction. The very reason I abhor the term AAA is because I think the games labelled as such don't deserve it. They're generic mediocre garbage, copying each other's successes and finding as many ways to financially prey on their audiences as possible. Maybe Yves Guillemot agrees with me, and that's why his bar for Quadruple-A is so low. You just have to be a fairly big, complete video game to qualify. Quids in. Of course, that's not really what he meant, but it's the truth. Probably the closest game to be able to have said it's ever been top-grade pedigree in the modern AAA space has been Baldur's Gate 3, which itself stands as anathema to the kind of game Ubisoft publishes. And even then, I can't call it AAA for the reasons I just gave. A dozen rushed, sloppy, far from completed, glorified early access live services awarding themselves the title as well. Maybe as a result, we could say Baldur's Gate 3 is actually the one true Quadruple-A video game? Oh wait, no, we can't. Gotham Knights has already fucked that term up too. Gotham fucking Knights. At the top of the video, I said history repeats. Now, this is coming from me because, well, I'm a very old bitch at this point, and I've been in the business a long time. So I can tell you that at the end of the 2000s, which, yeah, we're really going that far back, there was this very brief period where it was trendy for big devs, big publishers, big CEOs. I've mentioned in the past that John Riccatello made this point of saying that $60 was too high. Now this was, what was it, like PS3, Xbox 360 gen. They were saying $60 was too high, except for the fact that their games deserved to charge $60 because theirs had earned it. Theirs was the well-developed, vast, complete, top-tier game. Now, I know a couple of studios did this. I'm going off the top of my head because, you know, posts from back then are a fucking nightmare to find. But I do remember Bethesda was one of them. I don't know if the quote was Todd Howard specifically. I know I wrote about the story once a very long time ago. But yeah, they were using that to justify, I think, Skyrim. for $60. It was just this weird trend where it's like, yeah, we're on your side, game prices are too high. By the way, our prices that are that high price are not too high, just trust us. So yeah, interesting bit of history repeating itself for different motives, but still the same fucking thing. They'll criticise anything in the industry for the things they're doing, except it's okay when they do it because, well, they've earned the right. So yeah, that's that. Thank God for me, and all that jazz. God, you wouldn't think it, but it is sweaty as fucking... This dress is just not breathing. Even though there's just like a massive fucking like off the shoulder, which I never go for, but fuck me. Where's that other part?